I've always believed evil was just a story parents tell to scare their kids. Until the night I realized it isn't just a story. And sometimes, it finds you. Before we dive in, make sure to subscribe, hit the bell, and leave a like and comment, because the ending of this story will shock you, and you won't want to miss a second. It all started when I moved into my first apartment alone. I had just graduated college, and the idea of living independently felt like freedom wrapped in excitement. The building wasn't new, but it had a certain charm, with creaky wooden floors and a narrow stairwell that smelled faintly of damp wood and old paint. My neighbors were quiet, or at least I thought they were. On my first night, I unpacked boxers in the dim glow of a single desk lamp. The city noises outside soft and distant. The apartment was eerily quiet, but not in a peaceful way. It was the kind of quiet that presses against your ears, filling every corner of the room. I brushed it off as my imagination, tired from moving all day. It wasn't until the second night that I started noticing small things. Shadows shifting just outside my bedroom door, footsteps that didn't match my own schedule, and the faintest whisper, like someone breathing. But when I turned, no one was there. I told myself it was stress. After all, this was a big change. But the unease grew. I started hearing knocks at odd hours. Soft at first, almost hesitant, like someone testing if I was alone. And then there were the scratches. Scratching sounds that came from the walls, not from the pipes, not from the floorboards. These were deliberate, rhythmic, almost impatient. One night, I swore I heard a voice whispering my name. I froze, heart pounding, staring into the corner of my darkened bedroom. Nothing. I tried to rationalize it. Maybe the building was settling. Maybe it was mice. Maybe I was just paranoid. But deep down, I felt a growing weight in my chest every night. A pressure that told me I wasn't alone. About a week in, I started noticing something stranger. Items in my apartment weren't where I left them. Keys vanished from the counter, only to appear on the kitchen table hours later. My laptop, left on the sofa, would be angled differently, screen facing a corner. The sense of being watched grew stronger, suffocating, like a heavy fog pressing against my skin. I confided in my friend Sarah over the phone. "It's probably nothing," she said. "Old buildings make noises. You're tired. Just focus on unpacking." But her voice didn't ease the gnawing fear that had begun to eat at me. Then came the dreams. At first, they were vague dark shapes at the edge of my vision, whispers I couldn't understand. But soon, they became more vivid, almost real. I'd wake in a cold sweat, convinced I heard my apartment door creak open, or footsteps crossing the living room. I tried recording the noises on my phone. When I played them back, there was nothing but silence. Yet, my gut told me the presence was real. One night, I was sitting on the sofa, scrolling aimlessly through my phone, when a sudden chill ran through the room. The kind of cold that isn't just temperature, but a deep, crawling sensation under your skin. My breath became visible, puffing in front of me. I told myself it was a draft and went to check the windows. They were all closed. That's when I saw it, a shadow, standing at the edge of the kitchen doorway. It didn't move like a person, not exactly. It was too tall, too thin, like the darkness itself had taken shape. My chest tightened, breath caught in my throat. I blinked, and it was gone. I told myself it was my imagination, but it wasn't. Over the next few nights, the shadow returned, always in the corner of my eye. It never came closer, but the feeling of being hunted was undeniable. I started leaving lights on, never sitting with my back to a door, constantly listening. My apartment no longer felt like home. It was a trap stage 4, something that didn't belong in the human world. One night, after a particularly long day at work, I collapsed onto my bed, exhausted. I thought I could ignore it, that I could force sleep and pretend the fear wasn't real. But then I heard a soft, deliberate tapping on the window. I froze, staring into the dark outside, half expecting a figure to be there. Nothing. The tapping grew louder, faster, almost frantic. It was as if whatever was out there was growing impatient, testing me, reminding me it was watching. I reached for my phone, hands shaking, trying to convince myself to call someone. Anyone. But the signal my heart pounded, my room felt smaller, the shadows deeper, as though the walls themselves were closing in. Then came the whisper, soft at first, almost unease, yet unmistakable. "I see you." I bolted upright, scanning the room. Nothing. My hands were clammy, legs shaking. I couldn't sleep that night, or any night after. It was then I realized something. This wasn't random. This presence, it was aware of me. Aware that I was terrified, and the worst part, I couldn't escape it. Every creak, every shadow, every whisper felt like a countdown. Like it was waiting for something I couldn't understand yet. I tried telling myself I was overreacting, that the stress of being alone was warping my mind. But deep inside, a chilling certainty had taken root. Whatever it was real. And it wasn't just haunting the apartment. It was watching, studying, and learning how to break me down from the inside out. I didn't know how much longer I could endure it. Each night became a test. A silent battle of wills. The shadow lingered, unseen but present, feeding on my fear. And for the first time in my life, I understood that evil doesn't always announce itself. It waits, patient, and strikes when you least expect it. Little did I know, that was only the beginning. The following week, I started noticing other changes, things that couldn't be explained by shadows or imagination. Objects that had moved before were now gone entirely. My keys, my wallet, even small items like my coffee mug vanished without a trace. At first, I tried to convince myself that I was misplacing things, but the unease gnawed at me. The air in the apartment felt heavier, like it was soaked in something I couldn't name. One night, I woke to a sound that made my blood run cold. A soft, dragging noise, like something heavy being pulled across the wooden floor in my living room. My bedroom door was shut, but the sound was unmistakable. Primerala, I frozen, straining to hear. My heart hammering in my chest. It stopped suddenly, replaced by silence, so complete it pressed against my ears. I told myself to get up. Too confronted, but my body refused to move. That's when I noticed the smell of faint. Metallic odor like iron. Faint at first, then stronger, more pungent. My stomach twisted. The air was no longer just cold, it was suffocating, clinging to my lungs. I could feel it crawling over my skin, a prickling sensation that made every hair on my body stand on end. The next morning, I found scratches on my bedroom door long, deep gouges that hadn't been there before. They were jagged, uneven, almost as if someone or something had been trying to claw its way inside. I called the building manager, pretending to ask about maintenance, but he shrugged, saying the building was old and the wood sometimes cracked. His casual tone only made the fear inside me deepen. Sleep became impossible. Every creak of the floorboards, every rustle in the kitchen, made me jolt upright. I tried to record the sounds, but every playback was blank, nothing but silence. Yet, the sensation of being watched never left me. I felt eyes on me at every turn, invisible yet tangible. One evening, I returned from work to find my apartment transformed. Furniture slightly shifted. My desk chair turned to face the corner of the room, and the kitchen knife I left in the sink was gone. My first instinct was to call the police. But how could I explain this? There were no signs of forced entry, no fingerprints, no cameras. It was impossible. And yet, my gut screamed that something was inside my home, moving when I wasn't looking. I installed a small security camera by the front door, hoping to catch something on tape. That night, I stayed awake, watching the live feed on my laptop. Hours passed. At 2:17 a.m., I froze. On the screen, a shadow detached itself from the corner of my living room. It didn't move like a person, it glided, bending and stretching in ways no human could. Its head tilted unnaturally, and though it never came closer to the camera, the feeling of its awareness was overwhelming. I tried to rationalize what I saw, but nothing fit. My mind screamed for explanation, but there was none. The shadow lingered 4 minutes before retreating into darkness, leaving me shaking, unable to breathe properly. For the first time, I realized this wasn't a trick of light or stress. This was something else. The following days blurred into nights. I barely ate, barely slept, consumed by fear. I noticed other changes in myself. I was jumpy, irritable, hearing things that weren't there. Friends started noticing the difference in my demeanor, asking if I was okay. I lied, said it was stress. But the truth was, I was terrified. Terrified that I was sharing my apartment with something that wanted more than just to scare me. Then came the night of the knock. Not the tentative tapping from before. This was firm, deliberate, deafening against the walls. I froze, counting the seconds between each rap. 1, 2, 3. Relentless. It was at that moment I realized it was NT trying to get my attention. It was warning me, or threatening me. I couldn't tell which. I sat in the dark, phoning and thinking desperately. The knocking stopped. Silence fell, heavier than ever. And then, faintly, I heard my name, whispered again, low and guttural, carried through the apartment like smoke. I see you. My stomach lurched. Ikiniu primeraja, YSNT, imagining it anymore. Whatever it was, it knew my name, it knew me. And it wasn't bound by doors, locks, logic. The room felt alive, watching me, feeding on the tension that coursed through my veins. I left my apartment that night, walking the streets until dawn. The city lights didn't comfort me, though were harsh, exposing, unlike the protective darkness I had imagined inside my apartment. But I knew I couldn't stay there, not yet. Not until I understood what I was dealing with. I tried staying at friends' places, but even then, I felt its presence. That insidious feeling, that suffocating weight. I started noticing shadows flicker in peripheral vision. Even in sunlight, scratches appeared on my furniture at other people's apartments. Small but deliberate, my fear began to consume my waking hours. Finally, I contacted a paranormal investigator online. I had laughed at such things before, but now I was desperate. The investigator agreed to come the following night, insisting I stay calm and document everything. When he arrived, his demeanor was serious, almost grim. He set up cameras, EVP recorders, and small motion sensors around the apartment. We waited. Hours passed in tense silence. Then, the temperature plummeted. My breath was visible inside the apartment, and a low, almost inaudible hum filled the air. I felt it before I saw it, a presence, close, circling, patient. The investigator whispered, "Do you see that?" The shadow emerged from the corner, taller and darker than before, stretching toward the ceiling, moving in impossible angles. The air thickened. I could feel it pressing against my skin, a malevolent weight. The investigator muttered incantations under his breath, but the shadow paused, almost observing him, before retreating into darkness. The cameras captured nothing, only the distortion of the light. By the time he left, I was trembling. The shadow didn't follow him out, but it lingered in the corners of my vision, a constant reminder that I was never alone. I realized then that the evil wasn't random, it was patient, intelligent, and aware of every heartbeat, every thought, and it was just waiting for the moment when fear would give way to despair. Little did I know, the worst was yet to come. The days that followed were a blur of fear and paranoia. I barely left my apartment, never without checking the corners, never without scanning every shadow for the impossible. I avoided mirrors, afraid that whatever was watching might try to use them to look back at me. The presence had become a constant companion, an invisible weight pressing into my bones. One night, after what felt like an eternity, I awoke to a sound unlike any before, a soft, deliberate breathing close to my ear. I could feel the exhale on my skin. Warm and full, my eyes shot open, but nothing was there. I sat frozen, heart racing, praying the room would return to silence. But instead, I felt it. Something pressed lightly against my chest, not heavy enough to harm, but firm enough to terrify. The air smelled metallic, like blood, and I could taste iron in my mouth. I stumbled to the door, intending to leave, but it wouldn't budge. No matter how hard I pulled, twisted, or kicked, The handle felt like it was welded to my palm. Panic clawed its way up my throat. That's when I heard it, a whisper. Low, guttural, but unmistakable. Don't leave. Stay with me. Forever. The lights flickered. Shadows stretched unnaturally across the room, as if the darkness itself had weight and intent. I backed into the corner, trying to make myself as small as possible, hoping it might overlook me. But I knew better. Whatever it was, it had no need for subtlety. It thrived on fear. Hours or maybe minutes. Time felt broken, distorted. The shadow didn't speak again, didn't move, but its presence was suffocating, pressing, alive. I felt eyes on me from every angle, corners of the room that weren't even visible in the dim light. Every instinct screamed at me to run, yet the door remained locked. The apartment a cage. I don't remember how I fell asleep. Exhaustion finally claimed me, though even in sleep, the terror didn't end. I dreamt of impossibly dark places, vast empty rooms where whispers echoed endlessly. Shapes moved in the corners of my eyes, always just out of reach, always observing. I woke, drenched in sweat, lungs burning, only to find the apartment silent. Too silent. For weeks, I tried everything rituals I found online. Prayers I barely believed in, even trying to confront it, shouting into the empty rooms. Nothing worked. The shadow never left. It didn't need to. Its presence was permanent, a dark mark on my life. Friends avoided me when I told them, thinking I unease. Even the investigator refused to return, telling me bluntly that some things shouldn't be challenged, that some evils are beyond human understanding. One evening, I finally dared to film the apartment with multiple cameras, hoping to capture proof, something tangible. I set up devices in every corner, even on the ceiling, and left them running overnight. The next morning, I checked the footage. At first, nothing unusual, but then I noticed it a flicker, a shadow moving against the flow of reality. It didn't behave like the normal shadows cast by walls or furniture. It twisted, elongated, disappearing and reappearing as if the rules of physics didn't apply. And then, slowly, unmistakably, it raised a hand door. Something like a hand end pointed directly at the camera. I felt a chill run down my spine. The air seemed to thicken, pressing down on me. I realized then that it had known all along I was trying to document it. It had been aware, watching, learning, and now it was warning me. It saw me. The final escalation came on a night when the apartment felt unbearably oppressive. The shadows seemed to pulse, moving like liquid across the walls. The whispers returned, louder this time, almost intelligible. You belong here. You belong to me. I felt something brush against my ankle, something cold and lingering. My legs refused to move. I wanted to scream, to run, but the air around me seemed to solidify, pressing my body into the carpet. Then, silence. Deafening. Unnatural silence. My pulse slowed. My mind reset, and in that quiet, I understood something terrifying. His presence was not just in the apartment. It was inside me now, living in the fear that had consumed my heart. It didn't need doors, locks, or walls. Fear was its home, and I had given it sanctuary. I don't know how long I stayed there after that night. Weeks, months, time lost meaning. Friends stopped calling. The apartment became a tomb, but leaving felt impossible. Every attempt to escape, every plan, was thwarted by invisible hands, by the knowledge that I was being watched even when I thought I was alone. And then, one morning, I awoke to find a note on my desk, written in a dark, thick substance that smelled faintly of iron. You can hide from what sees you. My hands shook, my breath quickened, but I couldn't leave. I couldn't even think of leaving. I was trapped in a living nightmare, one that didn't need to explain itself, one that didn't need to act, it only needed to exist. I learned to live with a Tor, at least. I think I have. Every shadow makes me jump. Every strange noise keeps me awake. But I've stopped trying to fight. It's patient, intelligent, eternal. It waits. And I know it will never let me go. So if you ever feel that chill in an empty room, hear your name whispered when no one is there, or see shadows that don't belong, believe me. Evil exists, and sometimes it chooses you. If you enjoyed this story and want to hear more terrifying true accounts, make sure to subscribe, hit that bell, like, and leave a comment below. I want to know, have you ever experienced something that couldn't be explained? Share it with us, if you dare.